Okay, that's enough of that. So if you're listening to this is the appendix to the GoldenEye episode that you probably listened to last week, and we're going to talk about the video game today. As always, I'm Drew, and that's Trav.
I'm Trav.
And welcome to the Overdue Homework Podcast. So we're going to talk about GoldenEye. Trav, what did you think of GoldenEye?
GoldenEye is awesome.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Surprisingly enough, once you get used to the controls,
Yeah.
it holds up.
Yeah, it definitely does. I didn't know till recently that it has the Doom-style controls where you just shoot and it auto-aims, so that's a game changer for sure.
Takes a little skill out of the game, but when you're trying to aim in GoldenEye, it's very difficult.
Very difficult, especially single player. It's one thing multiplayer when we're both trying to do that at the same time, but single player, I love all the somersaults and you're just dual wielding the clobs. Yeah, it's pretty damn fun.
It really is, and it's I mean, I played it with cheats on. We couldn't get the cheats to work this afternoon for some reason or other, but I played with some cheats on just so I didn't have to worry about dying to get through some levels fairly quickly because, you know, kids and family and all. But it's a surprisingly good game. It's somewhat repetitive, and it's really lacking in, like, visual depth because the polygons are humongous and everything's very flat.
Super dark when it's dark. And
super dark. Very hard to like get your bearing on where you're going in single player, especially because you don't have like a HUD necessarily, you know. But I really enjoyed it. I mean, there's some clear differences between the game and the movie, right?
Yeah.
For the most part, the game does a pretty good job of trying to like at least capture the feel of the movie, it seems like, right? All the main components are there, like Natalia's there, you know, Anatop's there, you got Alec is there, you
006.
Yeah, 006, 007, Umarov, everybody's represented.
Yeah.
Even Boris, which is unfortunate.
Even the dude in the stall in the first
even the
part
dude
of
in the
movie.
stall. But speaking of that, I wish you fell down into his stall.
Yeah,
but you
Spidey
don't.
style.
Yeah, Spidey style. But they're probably, when they were designing the game, they're probably like, that's impossible.
That's impossible. Nah.
But I have to say, you know, there are some differences. Like in the very beginning of the game, it does fairly represent what Bond does. You go to the dam, you jump off the dam, and you bungee cord into the facility, right?
Right.
It kind of feels like, in the video game, it kind of feels like you're almost getting a little bit of backstory as to what Bond was doing before he made that leap at the beginning of the movie.
Right.
Some big differences in that level are, A, there was no towers on the dam, right?
Yep.
B, you never in the game you never see Bond's bungee cord, and you kind of just jump off the side of the dam, and then you know a little cutscene takes over.
Right.
And then C, you know, it wasn't crawling with guards either. So, but I mean, it's a video game.
Exactly.
It's a video game. You got to make it into a video game.
Yeah, you got to give some enemies.
Yeah, you got to give some enemies. So I mean, it gets you started off very similarly to the movie. When you go into the facility, it is interesting, though, how you don't actually run into 006 until you're, like, in the exploding room of death. Right? And then he kind of, like, does a couple of things, and you blow some stuff up, and then you kind of walk over to that thing, and then you're outside, and the level's over, right? So, it's the idea. When I was a kid, I didn't really think of GoldenEye the movie and GoldenEye the game as being like the same thing.
I didn't either.
You know, and playing it now in my now almost 40, I'm like, I'm getting through the game and I'm like, oh, where do I need to go? What do I need to do? And I'm like, what did they do in the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what they did in the movie. That's what I need to do in the game.
Yeah, we did that in the first time we were playing when you blow up all the crap. And then we just get slaughtered by the onslaught of people. And then second time, hey, maybe we go over to that little conveyor belt like he does in the movie. Oh, cutscene.
Cutscene. It works. It's perfect.
Yeah.
So it's kind of seems like that facility, the dam and the facility levels are like really trying to make you feel like it's the movie.
Right.
There's differences, obviously. We kind of talked about them a little bit, but it's really trying to make you feel like it is the movie and not just the game. And they execute that fairly well.
Yeah.
Which I'm totally cool with. And I thought it was a cool addition to the movie to make it feel, or to the game to make it feel very cinematic at the beginning. It's very you know what you're getting into, kind of, at that point, right?
What's funny is, as a kid, the movie was honestly non-existent to me.
Really?
Like, it didn't factor into anything. I don't remember seeing any previews for it. I just remember GoldenEye, the game. But now it's funny, having watched the movie so many times, how similar it is. Like, non-existent when I was a kid.
That is interesting.
GoldenEye movie? What?
I do remember watching the movie and then playing the game, but not, like I said, not making that connect between the two, because I was fairly young in 1995, and having, as an 11-year-old, maybe GoldenEye wasn't exactly an appropriate movie for an 11-year-old at the time, but
maybe not.
I'm sure Tom was like, hey, it's the newest Bond. I mean, I remember this from when I was a kid. Let's watch a Bond movie, and then Pierce Brosnan goes down as the deadliest Bond ever.
Right. And I was 5, so probably not a good idea to watch that.
Probably not. There is a couple of interesting differences between the movie and the game in the facility. Like, one of the missions you're supposed to take on is to save as many of the scientists as possible, and in the movie, Alec is just lighting them up.
Just lighting them up. We talked about in the episode is that like foreshadowing his evil nature? Yeah. Probably, but not in the game.
Not in the game at all. So after the facility, you get into the runway mission in N64's GoldenEye. It's very different than what Bond did in the movie. Bond chases after a plane in a motorcycle and catches up to it in midair, while Umarov is like, I want to see how this plays out. In the game, you're running and gunning and getting to a plane by itself and flying it off of the cliff, the runway and the cliff, which I did not know this, or at least didn't remember. If you go back around the corner from when the level starts, there's a tank that you can get into. So you can just drive around lighting everybody up in this tank. So
nice.
That was really fun to do. I was like, like I said, I had some cheats on, so I was on invincibility, and so I'm like, let's explore the map a little bit and see what's out here. I'm like, oh, there's a tank. I wonder if I can get it. Yup, I can get into that tank. Time to blow some stuff up.
So. I wonder if that scene wasn't too ridiculous for cinema, but the N64 couldn't handle this motorcycle leap onto this helicopter. So like, you know what? We're just going to not put that.
Why didn't they do just like in the dam mission at the beginning of the game? Why not have a motorcycle for him to get on?
Right.
Chasing the plane, going down the runway,
and then just show this little cutscene.
Yeah, and maybe there's some obstacles that you have to go around. Maybe you have to be firing your gun while you're on your motorcycle, taking some people out or something like that. And then, like you said, cutscene, and then he's getting in the plane and flying away.
We'll skip that part.
Yeah, we'll skip that part. So the next mission in 007 is the Service. There's some very key differences. Bond was never in Severnia during the GoldenEye mission, so that didn't happen at any point in the movie. So it's just kind of a departure from the movie, but you got to have some story in the game to make it feel like a game.
Right. Don't want it to be 100% predictable?
No, not 100% predictable. You move on to the bunker after that, and again, Bond was never in Severnia during the GoldenEye mission. So, it didn't happen at any point in time. So
that's that.
That's that. You go over to the silos next in the game, and this is an interesting, like a very true departure from the movie.
Yeah.
Because when we're in the movie, the satellites are in the air already. We're not trying to like sabotage satellites like in the game or take pictures of satellites that are on the ground at this point. The satellite's already in the air. It's interesting though. So there are only 2 GoldenEye satellites in the movie. And if one exploded in the game above Severnia already, and the other one is aimed at London, you're taking a picture of a third one in the game. There's no third.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just an interesting difference. But once again, you got to have some game to game at.
Right.
You got to have some game to game at.
You got to have some game to
game at. That level particularly is kind of a cool level because it's the first one in the game where you're like, you got to do something besides just killing bad guys. You got to go take a picture of a satellite. And it was cool, too. I didn't recall this while playing it because I had to replay the mission. But if you go running and gunning into the room where the satellite is before you take the picture, you will blow the satellite up and the mission will fail.
Nice.
It's like, oh, wow, okay. And I was like, I got to take a picture of it? How do I take a picture of it? There's no real clear instructions on how to take a picture of it.
Yeah.
You got to go into the menu on your watch and then select the camera. You're not physically holding a camera.
Yeah.
And then you have to pull the trigger like you're firing a gun. But if you switch to a gun while you're trying to take a picture, you got to go back into your watch. You got to select the camera again and take a screenshot of. So
smartwatches before smartwatches.
It is your limitations are showing N64, but that's okay. It still is pretty cool to have like an espionage mission. You're taking pictures of this stuff and trying to get out of there. So after that mission, you move on to the frigate. The frigate is completely different than the movie. There's nothing like it in the movie at all. There's hostages on the boats. It's covered in guards. You're killing all types of people and freeing hostages and then putting a tracker on the helicopter. And the helicopter was called Pirate, and not it's Tiger in the video game. But you got to have some game-to-game at. I think that's going to be the theme of this one, right?
Yeah.
But it's still hanging loosely with the movie. You know, it's still going, now we're at the frigate. Now we're dealing with the helicopter.
Yeah.
So it's still hanging with it. And then you go back to the surface and you play the surface mission again because gaming stuff. Once again, Bond was never there. You go back to the bunker and this is where Bond meets Natalia in the military office. That's where she meets him in the movie.
Right.
In the game, they're in cells next to each other.
Yeah.
And then he's got to use his magnet watch, which is not in 007. It's in previous Bond movies, but it's not in 007.
And I know you have to because it's James Bond, but why does he always say his last name first?
I don't know. He's just really, really formal, I guess.
They're in the cell next to each other in the game, and he says Bond. James Bond. Yeah, I think I'd just go with James if I'm locked in a cell next.
You can call me Jimmy.
Call me Jimmy. Like my watch.
So once they get out of that, so it was Live and Let Die where he uses the magnetic watch. So whatever, that movie was in the 80s. We'll maybe do it on an extra credit. I wouldn't hold my breath, but maybe we'll do it on extra credit someday. Next, you go to the statue level, which is again, it's Bond meeting Alec Trevelyan and the statues.
Yep.
So he went to meet Janice and not to locate Natalia in the game. In the movie, I should say. And then the reason that he gets to the game is gets to the where the statues are in the movie is because it's on his own free will. Like he takes Onatop hostage, right, and gets him over there.
Yep.
In the movie, in the video game, it's a mission. So you gotta have some game at. We'll just continue with that. And the helicopter obviously explodes in a completely different fashion in the video game compared to the movie.
Yep.
But that's okay. It was still cool, and it was still a helicopter exploding in a video game. After that mission, you move on to the archives, and Bond and Natalia are they're going to be interrogated in the same room with Mishkin in the movie. Mishkin is shot in front of Bond and Natalia before they could escape the room in the movie. And that's not the case in the video game. Bond does end up escaping without Natalia. Not a very nice guy.
No. Trips her on the way out.
Hey, you stay here. And once again, the magnetic watch makes an appearance, which does not happen in the movie at all.
Yep.
Now you move on to what's arguably the most exciting scene in the movie, being in the streets, fighting their way out with the tank and all that fun stuff.
Definitely.
So once again, the game is loosely holding to the movie. That's still going beat for beat. We're still moving along. The movie and the game are still moving along the same pace.
Yep.
Obviously, there's no guards in the streets in the movie like there is in the video games. There's no landmines in the movie like there is in the video game. It is a public street in the movie, so odds of there being landmines everywhere is pretty small.
Yeah.
And of course, the most glaring thing was the scene in the movie is during the day and not at night.
Yep.
So those are some interesting differences, but still gets at the heart of what the movie was trying to do. It still gets at the heart of it. And then they move over to the depot, and Bond was only in the train depot for seconds in the movie. Bond rode that tank through the depot, whereas in the game, it's all on foot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit different there. In the train now, Bond was the only one in the car with Natalia and his enemies in the movie. Natalia has to find Boris's password before she can find the Janice base in the movie, not the case in the video game. Trevelyan gives Bond 3 minutes, not 1.
Yep.
So there's a difference right there. And John? Who's John?
John.
My name is Bond. John Bond.
John Bond.
And then Bond stops the train with a tank and not brake units.
Yep.
So that's a clear case of video game-ness coming through, because it's a video game.
Yeah.
Video game's got a video game. That's the way they got to do. Now they move on to the jungle like they do in the movie. In the movie, the Janus base was located on an island near Cuba, not actually in Cuba. And of course, Xenia Onatopp died in a much more gruesome way in the movie. I guess it wasn't gruesome, but it was more exciting in the movie, not just getting shot like she does in the video game.
You imagined it was going to be gruesome if they showed any more.
Yes. I still think she should have disintegrated into a fine mist.
Seriously.
Just... I would have loved that. Once again, though, this is a case of how do you execute that on an N64 in 1996? You don't. You don't. You just don't, without it looking absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
So you take the good with the bad, and they did the best of that situation. And Onatopp still dies.
Yeah.
She still dies. So
dies.
I mean, it's still going with the movie.
Right.
Next mission is the control room that we're going to talk about. It's the heart of the Janus base, and it is swarming with Janus operatives, especially near the computer where Natalia worked, which is on the bottom floor, like in the game. If you kill Boris in the game, Natalia will get mad and run away. In the movie, she beats up Boris, so I mean, she's not too happy about Boris being there to begin with, so you would think more like, that's okay. Natalia's like, that's okay. And then the control center has other computer programmers in the movie. Not the case in the video game.
Right.
Because it's a video game and there can only be so many people on screen at the same time. So they go into the caverns in the next mission. There weren't any ever subterranean water caverns in the movie.
No, there wasn't.
So that's definitely just adding some stuff to the game to make it a little bit longer than what it was going to be.
Right.
So now they're at the cradle, which is the main satellite dish, and Trevelyan, he doesn't realign the GoldenEye. Boris was having enough trouble with that. Alec was too busy trying to kill Bond in the movie. Trevelyan was thrown off the cradle, not shot off in the video game.
Yep.
Bond went down the ladder before Trevelyan did, because he gets kind of thrown down the ladder a little bit. Does that somersault down the ladder in the movie.
Right.
Demonstrates his best grip ever. The best grip ever. Yeah, I think, after editing that episode, I think Bond's grip needs to go up a little bit more. I think it's going to go Robin, it's going to go Bond, and then Pete's mom. I don't know if that's what we settled on, but I think Bond is a very close second to Robin.
And then we might have to throw, once we get to Jingle All the Way, there's another entry because Sinbad at the end of the movie. So we'll reassess our top 5 when we get to
Sinbad. Spoiler alert: Sinbad was supposed to be played by Joe Pesci.
Wow.
Yeah, that character was supposed to be played by Joe Pesci because of Christopher Columbus.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I absolutely love Joe Pesci and Home Alone's are the best, Sinbad is so good in this movie.
He really is.
He's so good.
He does his best Sinbad thing ever. But moving back over to the video game that we were talking about. After you get through all of that stuff with Trevelyan meeting his end, there's 2 more levels left in GoldenEye 007. Aztec, not in the movie.
Nope.
Egyptian, not in the movie. Just throwing a couple other things in there. They're plays off of other Bond movies and just padding out a game. They're like, this game's coming in a little short. Let's just throw in a couple of levels. You just running around killing people.
What have you been saying? Got a game to game.
Got a game to game. Video games got a game to game. Those are the main differences and similarities to the game, and I think what the developers did for this N64 game is pretty impressive.
Yeah, definitely.
They took a wildly popular movie and still managed to recreate it in a way that tells the story the same. It still tells the story. It's just a little bit different.
Yeah.
It's almost like a novelization of a movie compared to what the actual movie is, because there's always a little bit of difference between a novelization and what the movie actually is. It's a cool way to kind of think about it that way, and I commend them for taking on that and saying, like, we're going to try to recreate the movie. Obviously, we have limitations when it comes to developing this software for the N64, so we're going to cut corners and do our best to do what we can, but they still recreated the movie. There's still all the things that you would have expected out of GoldenEye. The key card's in there.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to make a copy of the key card at some point in the video game.
Right.
Which is weird because he doesn't make a copy of the key card in the movie. He never even touches the key card.
No.
Is Bond even ever in the same room as the key card? At the very end when they're clicking the pen.
Oh, yeah.
But that's it, right?
Yeah.
Once again, I'm hung up on that key card from the movie. Like, it's just the weirdest thing ever. There was no explanation for what that thing is or what it does or why it shoots lasers at computers and why that unlocks computers to begin with.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
So movies can movie.
Sometimes a movie's just got a movie.
A movie's got a movie. Yeah, the single player is really good and it's really fun.
Yeah.
But obviously the multiplayer is iconic.
It really is.
Almost everybody's first real shooter multiplayer situation.
Yes. Do you remember the first time you played GoldenEye?
Definitely, with my cousins, and it was 3 of them, 3 brothers, so it worked out perfectly, and 4 of us all the time playing split screen, and they had like the old school big screen TV, big box one, so
the rear projection.
Oh yeah, plenty of screen watching, plenty of, I mean, who was your character of choice? Were you an asshole, or did you get?
I was. I chose Odd Job quite often.
Yeah. That's what it always was. It's a race to Odd Job. Someone's Odd Job and someone's Jaws.
Yep.
So you're super big.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes you had to. All right, no Odd Job.
No Odd Job.
No, because you're pretty much gonna win as Odd Job unless you suck.
Yeah. When we were just playing the multiplayer, just the 2 of us, it was surprisingly fun for just 2 people.
It is, and there's a lot of ways to switch it up.
Yeah.
You know, like we did pistols only on the first one, then automatics, but I remember lasers only being really fun.
Yep.
And I know my cousin would pick golden guns a lot just so first shot is over, you know.
And then once it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, you start whipping out slaps, and everybody's having a grand old time laughing it up because everybody had a case of Mountain Dew under their belt at that point. So
slaps only.
Slaps only. And then, of course, once you would finish the game, there would be unlockables that you'd be able to, with each level that you would complete within the game. Because there was Agent, there was 00 Agent, 007.
I think that's the 3.
The 3 of them.
Unless you unlock another harder one after.
I don't remember if you do or not, but you probably do. Probably do. But I remember playing.
No thanks to that.
No thanks to that. I remember playing paintball all the time. It was cool because the paintballs, just like in the game, the bullet holes stay in the walls during the gaming session, which is a cool thing that we don't think too much about that because we're so used to video games with everything in the environment explodes, everything stays the same. Even if you go all the way across a map on a massive multiplayer game, when you go back to where you were, that same shit's still laying on the ground and you can pick it up again. So the idea of bullet holes staying in the walls and stuff was a cool idea. But it's like, whoa, they're still there. Ugh. And of course, did you spell out like ass and butt and stuff in the walls?
Obviously.
Obviously.
Made, genital or 2.
Oh, for sure. That's just what you got to do. That's what you got to do.
Obviously.
But yeah, this is a game that I remember playing with my friends at hockey tournaments because they would bring the N64 with, and we'd hook it up to the hotel TV, and we'd all cram into somebody's room, and we'd be playing GoldenEye, handing off the controllers.
Oh, yeah.
Bunch of stinky 12-year-olds after playing hockey all day, you know. So,
definitely.
Well, the parents went and had some drinks because that's what we paid ass ton of money for you guys to be here in Fergus Falls in the middle of February. We're gonna go drink.
It's the only option. You know?
Yeah, it's the only option. If you've ever been to Fergus Falls, that's about it. Trav, is there anything else that you wanted to add to this episode? Any other stories about GoldenEye or anything that you feel about this video game or movie?
Not really. The only other thing I was going to say is my favorite level was Complex. I don't know if you had a favorite level.
Yeah.
Also Complex.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really good one to always play, but the Facility was one that seemed like my friend group that we would play multiplayer on all the time.
Complex, Facility, and Temple.
Yeah,
I think
Temple
were like the 3 main ones. just plain facility. The only thing I don't like about it is how far you can be from each other.
You really can be pretty far.
And obviously, if you, even without screen watching, you hear the doors opening, you know which person's where, you know, with the metal doors or whatever they are.
Well, and then when we were just playing too, I'd hear the zip up sound, and I'm like, damn it, he's got body armor.
Yeah.
And even when we were playing, I was like, quit looking at his screen. Quit cheating. Don't look at his screen.
Like, look at the radar. Look at the radar.
Look at the radar. Look at the radar. Exactly. Look at the radar.
And magnums are OP.
Magnums are OP because, 3 shots, even with body armor, and you're done.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap, buddy. Oh, man. But, Jake, thanks a ton for suggesting doing this dual homework episode. And
definitely a lot of fun.
It was definitely a lot of fun, and hopefully we can do something like this again in the future with a different movie and video game.
Definitely. And we had to split it up so you didn't have such a super long episode to listen to. And even though this is going to release before Garfield, I got to say I'm super pumped for Jingle All the Way.
Yeah, me
I've
too.
already watched it 3 times. So
yeah.
I'm super jacked for it. And I know most of our listeners / clientele are also going to love some of the dialogue we put in there.
I think so.
I mean, seriously.
I think so.
I work for the post office, so you know I'm not stable. Oh, man, I was just laughing so hard.
They really play on that going postal angle in this movie.
It's so good. We need all the Sinbad dialogue possible.
Yeah, I think that's a fact. We're just gonna do Sinbad's dialogue. That's it. That's what the whole thing is gonna be.
You're gonna be Arnold. I'll do Sinbad.
Yep,
We're
that's
good.
it. That's it. And somebody can be Jake Lloyd. I don't know who, but somebody can be.
For sure. But in the spirit of keeping this episode short, we got no emails or questions at the end. Thanks again to Jake. Thanks to Triple Falls. Make sure you guys are following us on Instagram and Facebook at Overdue Homework Podcast. Email us at overduehomeworkpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, don't forget to tune in to the next exciting episode of the Overdue Homework Podcast.